Hello. Greetings and salutations, my beautiful people, and welcome back to the next edition of Caddy's Retrospectives, where we are now at part 2 of my gex trilogy retrospective. So do you know what this means? We're going to be talking about gex 2. Obviously. Fucking moron.
So, from where we left off in the first game, Gex saved television from Res and didn't learn a sodding thing. But outside of the game's world, Gex had actually learned a lot. With a mostly positive review response, which is honestly very impressive for a new IP on a brand new console that nobody wanted to spend a salary on, Gex managed to garner a few Best 3DO Game awards, and because of that, knocked himself into the mainstream. Yes, I know that being the best 3DO game in the mid-90s is the same as saying that you ate the best salad of 1960 or making a game that's the best PS Vita exclusive of 2010, but whatever. Because of this, Crystal Dynamics must have wised up and realised nobody was playing Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, because it didn't take long for Gex to hit the PS1 and then the Sega Saturn before finally ending its run on PC. But just after Gex's many releases between 1995 and 1997, the 3D platformer was already in top gear, and by Gex's PC release, Crash Bandicoot was dominating PlayStation while Mario 64 dominated Nintendo. And so then, out of absolutely nowhere, in January 1998, after Crash and Mario, but before Rareware truly stepped into 3D platformers, Gex returned to the world of gaming, ditching the 3DO, jumping straight for the PS1, and ditching the side-scrolling idea for the favour of this new-fangled 3D.
I was joking earlier, by the way. You're not all morons. You are all actually very intelligent. And eloquent. And fancy. Look at my spot.
Now, I'm not sure if anyone saw this coming or not, so this could have been a pointless cash into the 3D trend of the time, very similar to Bubsy 3D. I mean, damn, 3D was already in the title, much like that game. But instead, Gex managed to take some of Crash's linear hardcore platforming challenges and then combine them with Mario 64's more open levels and collectathon gameplay. And finally dash it all with the more unique features of Gex 1 to create something pretty cool. Gex 3D Enter the Gecko, released on January 31st, 1998.
Whenever I talk to people about Gex, this is the game that most people seem to remember, and I can see why. It's a very memorable game, and I'm sure that for a time when this game first came out, it would have helped the PlayStation be the go-to console for 3D platformers alongside Crash Bandicoot and such as, because even though Mario 64 and stuff were out on the Nintendo 64, Rareware's 3D platformers hadn't quite kicked off yet when this game came out, and obviously this game wasn't on Nintendo 64 until Rareware's 3D platformers happened anyway. But hey, do you know something? Because of the delightful cartridges, when this game was ported to the N64, they had to remove over 500 voice samples. 500. Suck it. Is this one of the best 3D platformers I've ever played, though? Well, no, not for me. I mean, it doesn't do anything bad. It's a really great game in its own right, but it just didn't offer as much as its competition at the time, especially for games that came out years before it. It just didn't offer quite as much, and I'm sure that that is what ultimately held it back slightly. But hey, we can talk about more of that later, because now we have to talk about the story. And who better to talk to for story than the
story makers, working through the night till the rising sun.
Now, at the ending of Gex 1, Gex just ended up back where he started, watching TV. If that isn't a sequel-baited ending, I don't know what is. But despite this, Gex gained a bit of a celebrity status after defeating Rez, apparently, and so decided to retire. By watching TV. So that celebrity plot point was just basically fucking pointless. Jeez, Gex wasn't really the advocate for old boy story arcs, was he? Either way, in Gex 2 3D Enter the Gecko, he was watching TV one day when suddenly Rez reappears on his screen, and before Gex can even fart, 2 government agents request his help, you know, thinking he'd be insane enough to just do what he did in the first game all over again. Obviously, Gex refuses this, prompting him to be kindly escorted away from his house and persuaded via other means, like a load more money, for instance, which Gex seriously doesn't need, as we established from the last game. And with that, Gex takes the job. And so, Gex must travel through the media dimension yet again, traveling through different genres of TV, collecting remote, unlocking more channels, and finally kicking Rez's ass once more. Only difference now, we're in 3D.
Much simpler, much dumber, much less needlessly depressing than Gex 1's backstory, and ultimately more fun because of that. But it is so fucking dumb. So many things don't make any sense. I could just dismiss this as I'm looking at a video game plot about a walking, talking gecko too seriously, but here's the thing. Dana Gould reprised his role as Gex in the US version of this game anyway, and at the time he was doing some writing for The Simpsons, so I would have at least expected things to make sense in this fucking story. But again, that isn't the point of the game. There's an FMV cutscene at the beginning and at the end, and that's all the story that there is, so you can't complain about it too much. We have to talk about now the things that make the game what it is, how it plays, and what it does.
From a presentation perspective, gex 2 3D4 Enter the Gecko made the obvious jump from 2D to 3D, and there was so much effort put into the way this game looked from a variety standpoint alone that made everything else fantastic. If you looked at the gameplay alone, you literally run around, attack enemies, and collect things, and that's pretty much it, with every stage getting slightly harder in how you go around collecting things. So where that isn't so special at all when set on its own, the way this game makes that interesting from just the way it presents itself is marvelous. Every costume Gex wears in each stage, every bouncy and more memorable song than Gex 1, all of the 700 plus voice clips recorded for Gex himself, and the way that each TV channel level looks unique enough in its concept alone, like with the prehistoric channel, cartoon channel, and kung fu channel, makes everything you do in this game feel different. Even with the bonus stages that literally just featured you picking up everything in the stage before the time ran out, all felt fresh and different just from the detail in the audio and visual presentation. And the way that the level design worked around everything each TV channel would feature for you to platform around makes it all the more cool. Hell, even the little things like with the way that after collecting 30 collectibles and then 40 more collectibles, the way they ended up changing after each collectible goal you reached just made collecting them in itself feel much less mundane. And even though this game is puns galore in many areas, the effort gone into the level names and parodies of all sorts of movies and TV shows sprinkled everywhere was honestly quite charming. I mean, you even get a horror stage in this game named Thursday the 12th. Fucking perfect.
Fun fact, did you know
The Gex 2 was originally made with the same game engine that was used in the first Tomb Raider game? Imagine Gex with Lara's It's also worth saying that even though I said that Dana Gould reprised his role for Gex here in Gex 2 3D4 Rising Revengeance Enter the Gecko, and even did a lot of the writing, in the UK version, Gex was voiced instead by Leslie Phillips, a legendary British comedian with one of the greatest voices I've ever heard.
Go into the light. Obi-Wan has taught you well. And now it's Hilda.
Now, after experiencing this and then going back to Dana's commentary in the other versions, where I sort of understood people getting annoyed with it in Gex 1, with Gex 2, I personally thought it was worse. Nothing against the guy at all, but sometimes his voice was just ear bleeding, and the fact that there were hundreds more lines here than in Gex 1, I can now 100% understand the complaints towards his voiceover for the American audiences, and why some people couldn't play the game for that long because of it.
Tell time, tell time, tell time, tell time.
In the UK though, not even slightly the same story.
Days, then weeks blurred into one long, greasy telethon.
Days, then weeks blurred into one long, sorry afternoon chat show.
Leslie Phillips and his voice added this entirely new dimension of humor and class to Gex's character, and I think it suited him absolutely perfectly. Just the right amount of self-referential jokes, pop culture references, and utterly hilarious lines just from the way they're inflicted by Leslie's voice, all without ever getting annoying.
Shut it.
As far as everything else went, well, I did kind of sum it up all earlier. You ran around and picked shit up, and that's it. Bonus stages will have you pitted against a time limit, but as far as the puzzles went, they were practically non-existent, and as far as actual gameplay variety went, minus the boss battles, nothing really changes. Every stage had a certain amount of remotes to collect, which all had many ways of reaching them, whether it was from collecting 120 collectibles in the stage, breaking a certain amount of hidden objects, solving very simple puzzles such as finding a hidden switch to open a door, maybe fighting the occasional mini-boss, or simply just taking every branching possible pathway the open stage itself offered. It was all extremely predictable stuff with a predictable execution, and nothing at all crazy spliced into it. It did the basics and nailed the basics, like a packet of crisps. And what didn't make the game feel too repetitive despite that was, well, A, the presentation stuff I mentioned earlier, and B, the way the game actually played. In this game, Gex controlled so satisfyingly, just the right speed, just with the right jump arc, just with the right responsiveness and snappiness to the returning tail whip feature, and the way that the tail hop was massively improved here, allowing you to bounce freely and forever, made attacking enemies and traversing the landscape just so much fun. Yes, the game practically just provides you with the same kind of platforming challenges and nothing else, but the way that the challenges and level designs of each themed area got more intricate, tricky, and imaginative with the layout depending on those themed areas really stuck out to me as the game progressed. And actually thinking about it, with any aspect of this game that involves hidden secrets, this game has some of the greatest hidden secrets in 3D platformer history. They were really well hidden. Also, that karate kick move that got you a little bit more distance and allowed you to attack easier mid-jump, so much. The camera also worked pretty well, allowing multiple distances from the player and free movement left and right. And the strange fact that this game works just as well on a D-pad was the icing on the cake.
Fun fact, did you know
That I've been looking on the internet for ages now, and there's no fucking trivia for this game anywhere!
Yes, it may have had a little bit more variety than the first game and is a much bigger game overall than the first game, which is all good for a sequel, I do think that with the 3D transition, there were a few elements that were slightly stripped back and just left out.
Gex 2 3D 4 Rising Revengeance of the Fallen Enter the Gecko strangely dropped in a few areas, and whether or not it was a 3D issue, I have no idea. Well, firstly, Gex's best ability from the first game, climbing, was still here, but was extremely situational and only used for specially marked walls in certain levels, and usually only existed to just get one remote. I understand that for a 3D world, being able to climb everywhere would have kind of ruined the damn point of the game and made it too easy, but still it was kind of a shame to see it used so sparingly. The power-ups as well, good lord, what happened here? Even though smashing a TV and watching it spin around and fall over and then watching the fly come out and then watching Gex use the returning tongue move to lap the thing up was incredibly satisfying, the power-ups in this game were practically useless and honestly left no impact on me whatsoever. Like, I can't even tell you how any of these power-ups ever helped me, and they're pretty rare to find in the game as well, which is a massive shame considering the awesome breath power-ups in the first game. Not to mention the incentives for collecting everything in this game had kind of vanished from the first one. In Gex 1, a hidden bonus world with tough as nails levels for finding every hidden thing was your reward. This game, concept art at the very end of the game. Given the huge amount of bonus levels and extra content that Gex offered for finding everything, I found it so strange that there wasn't at least an extra level or something. I guess the concept art was nice, but it still wasn't as cool as Gex 1's bonuses if you ask me. Especially when this kind of shit happened to me a lot when trying to just get one damn remote. God damn Gex, what the fuck are you doing? Get over there, get over there, get over there, get over there, you're a gecko, you can climb, you fucking piss what? Bosses were also not as memorable here, with them being a little bit easier than the first game. But hey, the penultimate boss parodying Godzilla was fucking great, and the final battle with Rez was cool. Especially when the game pulled a first-person bad guy Battletoads thing on you, and when Rez looked absolutely horrifying. Good lord, that is a bad guy if I ever saw one. Almost reminds me of the bad guy in Stage Fright with those horrific teeth.
Yo, bugger!
And so, does Gex 2 3D Rising Revengeance of the Fallen Enter the Bruce Lee Gecko hold up today? Yes, it does. I mean, it's not the best 3D platformer that you could ever play due to the lack of any kind of meaningful puzzles and less gameplay variety than its competition, but you know what? The charm and the character and the tight controls and the joyous collecting of absolutely everything in this game made Gex stand out because of that. Even from a technical and presentation standpoint alone, you can see the love and effort that went into every corner of this game, and it shines through because of that. The passion that was put into this game is very clear, and because of that, it's one of the more memorable 3D platforming experiences, even if it isn't overall one of the most incredible.
For what Gex 1 did for the side-scroller, I feel like Gex 2 did for the 3D platformer. They both weren't the absolute greatest in their fields, but still stood out from the uniqueness of what they did do, and provided a really solid platforming experience for both adults and children who wanted to get into platforming games. In fact, in many respects, I believe that Gex 2 does a lot of things for kids' terms better than Mario 64 for your first 3D platformer. It has all of the basics and nails the basics, and that's that. Simple as, easy to pick up, easy to play, and satisfying as hell, with the right amount of challenge. Not like the intricacies and daunting scale and puzzles that Mario 64 offers, and the amount of practicing that is potentially needed to play and complete it. For kids anyway, at least, experiencing their first ever 3D platformer. Well, either way, to end my rambling, this story ends with Gex defeating Rez, who then tells Gex that he is his father.
Wait, what?
I don't know why I didn't see that coming. The resemblance is uncanny. Yeah, apparently Rez tried to get free cable one day and ended up falling into a scrap heap, so that's why he ends up looking like this. Didn't Gex's dad die in a NASA explosion though? Or did he not? Does this mean that Gex wasted his entire life being depressed and watching TV for absolutely no reason whatsoever because his father was still alive? Oh god. Unless they were just like,
Star Wars reference, lol, we're down with the kids and shit.
Then they made one of the most depressing plot twists to any bouncy mascot platformer that's ever existed. I know I shouldn't look at it too deeply, but the reason Gex watches TV could be completely wrong. He's wasted his life if this plot point is true. Am I the only one that finds this too heartbreaking to look past? It's just a Star Wars joke? If I say that, will I be happier? Yes, Rez makes a Star Wars joke, Gex kills Rez because the joke fucking sucked, and then he relaxes in a hotel room before heading back home. And also, there's Nikki from Pandemonium. Don't ask questions. Wait, what is she doing here? Don't ask questions. Is she a gecko hooker? Don't ask questions! And on that strange note, Gex 2 ends and triumphantly garnered much critical acclaim. But after such a monumental change from 2D to 3D, and generally positive consistent reviews, could Gex be improved at all? Could there even be a sequel? Or could he maybe jump another dimension to like 4D by another installment? Hello everybody and thanks so much for watching part 2 of this Gex Trilogy retrospective. Part 3 will be done very shortly, and I'll link it in this video on the screen right now once it is done. Excuse me. And if you look in the description, you'll find all my social networks that you can follow me on. There's loads of stuff in there, and you'll also find my AppMan and Games Grabber link, which, if you have a look at them, you'll be able to support my channel even further. And thank you so much for 400,000 subscribers, guys. I have no idea what to say. I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. I can't thank you enough. I love every single one of you. Thank you so much. And of course, if it's your birthday today while watching this video, happy freaking birthday to you. And please remember to stay beautiful.